Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Jenna Meyer, and I work in housing here at the University of Pittsburgh. This is, I believe, my fourth and final Prep for Pitt Zoom session for incoming first-year students. Again, thanks for being here. The way that we will roll this out is I will do a short PowerPoint presentation, and then I will open it up and introduce some of my colleagues that are going to be here helping out answering questions this evening. And then we'll open it up for Q&A for everyone. I will say that if you have any questions, to drop them in the chat, but be mindful that we may be answering them throughout the PowerPoint, and that we will have people answering questions in the chat. So make sure you're scrolling through there to see if someone may have answered your question in the chat. But for now, we will get started on the PowerPoint. Okay, here we go. I like to label all of my sessions with an addition now, and I made this PowerPoint specific for our upcoming big deadline, which is our June 1st deadline. So welcome to the June 1st edition of the Prep for Pitt first year Zoom. What we're going to be going over this evening is what guaranteed housing means, a reminder of what your welcome letter and your deadlines are, what it looks like to update your preferences, and that includes the LLC application, your roommate preferences, meal plans, and then we'll discuss resources available and then open it up to Q&A. So in case you aren't aware, guaranteed housing is specific for prospective first-year students who are admitted through admissions for the fall term, and they pay their $300 enrollment fee by May 1st or their indicated deadline through admissions. And they also pay their $325 housing deposit by their designated due date. These students are guaranteed on-campus housing. So your designated due date is unique to yourself. So if you have a friend that may have paid their admissions deposit after you or before you should ignore what their due date is. You have your own unique due date, which would be in the email that Panther Central sent you whenever or after you had paid your admissions deposit. This is a screenshot of something that you may have received in the mail or an email. It just is an overview of what your deadlines are. So your housing application and your Panther ID submit your photo deadline are both the same, and that deadline is in that email that you would have gotten from Panther Central welcoming you to the university and saying, here's your deadline for your housing application. Those deadlines now range from May 1st all the way to June 3rd. So make sure you're paying attention to that. And you want to make sure that you're paying your housing deposit, which is $325, and completing your application, and then also pre-submitting your Panther card or your Panther ID photo by that date, because we start mailing out your Panther IDs later on in the summer, and you want to make sure that you get that in the mail prior to arrival, because we don't want you to show up for arrival and have to wait in line at Panther Central because you never pre-submitted your ID photo. A deadline that is for every incoming first-year student is June 1st for the roommate request and the living learning community request. So you can complete your housing application by your deadline, and then you can go in as many times as you want to update your preferences, which include your roommate group, meal plan, living learning community, any of that. And you can update that as many times as you want all the way through 11:59 p.m. on June 1st. So this is what the first year housing portal looks like. That step one is that link to complete your housing application. You should only ever have to go into this once. So you'll click that and complete it. And then in the yellow boxes below, the update your preferences and apply for an LLC. You can go in and update your preferences as many times as you want, like I had said, by clicking that update here button. And then to apply for the LLC that you indicated on your application, you can click apply here. So these are the different things that are on that updated preferences portal. You can see here, it's a screenshot of the LLC that I might be interested in, or the assignment priority that I have interest in, and then also in, you can also see my room preferences listed here. And I will go into the portal too, just to show everyone what it looks like live. So this is a list of our current communities that we have for our living learning communities. All that you need to do is indicate which one would be your first choice on your application or in your preferences, and then click apply here. And it will take you right to the application for the living learning community that you're applying for. And you want to make sure that you actually complete the supplemental application, because that's what these communities are looking at to see if you're going to be accepted into the community. So even if you just indicate interest on your application, that's not actually completing the contract and the questions that the LLC has on their application. So you want to make sure that you actually complete that supplemental application to even be considered to living in an LLC that does include honors, Pitt business, nursing, health sciences, music, any of those or anything on here. You all have to complete the LLC application. This is a screenshot of what the roommate matching preferences portion looks like, and the roommate group request portion of the update preference portal. Like I said, I will go through what it looks like to change these and then to invite a potential roommate. So stay tuned for that, but this is what it would look like on your screen. A popular question that we do get is, if I have a roommate request and I also have a building preference, what are the chances that I'm going to get my roommate if I also want to live in an LLC? So we always say that roommate requests are definitely encouraged, but they're never guaranteed. And that is because LLCs have a finite amount of students they can accept in. And if they have room to pull in your requested roommate, they will definitely do that, because we do prioritize students who have roommate requests. But if that LLC does not have any room to pull in your roommate, then there is a question on the application that indicates your priority preference. That's LLC or roommate. And if you indicate LLC, then we will separate you from your roommate to be pulled into the LLC. But if you indicate roommate request as your priority, then we will release you from the LLC and so that you can live with your roommate. So you want to consider that as you're applying for LLCs, but we definitely encourage you to have a roommate request, because we know that roommates are definitely part of the reason, are part of the experience as an incoming first year student. So definitely recommend having a roommate request and even applying for an LLC. And as far as like building preferences, we definitely say to fill out your application as if you're not, like, an LLC doesn't exist, because if you don't get into the LLC, we want you to have your building and room preferences on your application so that we know that where you would want to live, because if you're accepted into that LLC, we're going to put you in that placement regardless of your building preferences, because you were accepted. What we don't want is for you to find out that Pitt business is in Bruce Hall, you want to live in Pitt business, and you indicate your preferences as only Bruce, because that gives us no flexibility if you don't get into the LLC. We want to know where your second or third choice would want to be. Another important update on your application is your meal plan option. So I will say that whatever you decide to put on your housing application as far as your meal plan preference, you will be assigned to that meal plan whenever we do our housing assignments. However, you're not married to that meal plan. You do have the opportunity to change that all the way through add drop of the fall term. So if you end up with a weekday unlimited plan on your application, because maybe you live close to Pittsburgh and you plan on going home on the weekend, but then you meet a really great group of people at Pitt and you don't want to go home on the weekends and you want to upgrade to an unlimited plan, you do have the first 3 weeks of the term to update that meal plan. And then it adjusts it for you. So whatever you put on your application, don't fret. We can always update that for you later over the summer. You can do that yourself, actually. Okay, some resources that are available. We have our housing services website, which is pc.pitt.edu, and you can choose housing. Panther Central is also a really good resource. They are open 24/7. You can contact them via chat, service request, email, phone number or walk-in. We don't accept email anymore. And then we will probably be having another Zoom session later in the summer after notice of assignments go out to answer more building and move-in specific questions. So stay tuned for dates on our website for that. And then one thing I did want to point out, if you have not already received information about this, our friends over in the Office of First Year Experience and Orientation, they host Panther Connect. And if you have not registered and are interested in coming to campus for more of an in-person activity and orientation, definitely recommend signing up for Panther Connect. These are the dates, and you can go to orientation, or I think it's orientation.pitt.edu to actually sign up. Yep, to secure your spot for Panther Connect. So before we go into Q&A, I am going to open up my portal here so you can actually see what it looks like to complete the housing application. Amanda, can you confirm that you can see my portal here?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so this is that first year portal that I was talking about before. I've already completed my housing application, so I don't have to click apply here. Instead, I'm going to go in and update my preferences. So here are all of my current preferences. So right now I'm saying that I'm interested in 12-month housing on campus because maybe I live really far away and to go back home would be really costly for me. So it's, I need to stay on campus. Maybe I have interest right now in the Resident Student Association. So I'm going to keep my interest there. Yes. I think I'm going to actually update my LLC preference to health science. So instead of Pitt Business, I think I'm going to apply for health sciences instead. And then I do want my assignment priority to be the LLC because my priority is to live in the LLC instead of having my roommate. Here are my current room preferences, but I think I'm not going to want Nordenberg. I think I'm going to want Towers instead because it's a little bit more affordable for me. So I'm going to go ahead and put a Towers double room or a single because they are cheaper as well. I'm keeping my roommate matching preferences there, so I'm not making any updates, but I did meet someone that I would like to have as my roommate if it allows. So I am going to invite Holly to be my roommate. So you can see that I am the group leader. And I want to invite Holly as my roommate. So I'm going to select Holly. You can now see that I'm inviting Holly to be my roommate. So now that I invited Holly, all that I need Holly to do is to go into her update preferences portal. And instead of remove here, it will say accept or decline. And she just has to accept that invitation. So once she accepts that invitation, my roommate group is complete and we are done. And you can only be a part of one roommate group, so keep that in mind. So if you meet other people between now and June 1st and you want to be a part of their roommate group, you would just have to remove yourself and your current roommate from your group, and they can now invite you into their group. So you can make as many changes as you want to your roommate group requests, but it has to be done through here. So I updated all my preferences. I want the unlimited with $300 dining as my meal plan. I'm going to click finish. That is all said and done. And now I'm going to go in and apply for that LLC. So I click apply for the LLC. And now here's that supplemental application that I'm getting specific for health science. So I'm going to fill out these these questions, and then I hit next step. I sign the contract. And then once I hit finish, my application for the LLC is then complete. So I will say that the application is not difficult. We ask you to put some thought into your answers, but I will let my colleague Amanda Reese go into the LLC a little bit more when we open up for Q&A. But like I said, these are the 3 buttons that you want to focus on in the portal: applying for your application, updating your preferences, and applying for that living learning community. So from here, I am going to introduce my friend Amanda.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jenna, so much. My name is Amanda Reese. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an assistant director in the Office of Residence Life. My specific role in Residence Life is working with our living learning communities. So I am here happy as Jenna named all of the ways that you can make changes to your application. If you have not applied for an LLC and you would like to, that is another great way to make an amendment to your housing application at this time. Certainly lots of options for living learning communities. We do have 3 styles of LLCs available, one of which is the academic course of study, those things tied to your major, like health sciences, nursing, engineering, business, and so on. We do have 2 LLCs that have a 1 credit course attached to them. Those are both hosted out of the Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies Department. Those are our Women Lead LLC and our Gender and Sexuality LLC. And our third category is special interest, which is anything else that does not require course enrollment. And those are things like sustainability, appreciation of the arts, music, service to others, things that might be interest areas outside of your academic major where you might want to spend some time during your living on campus with us. So lots of great opportunities. I'm very happy that you are here tonight, happy to answer questions for you, but I will send it back over to Jenna.
Thanks, Amanda. I do see some questions coming in regarding some LLCs. So someone asked if you can apply for an LLC for the second semester instead of the first. Do you want to answer that?
Sure. So if so LLCs are generally a 1-year commitment. So you are moving into your LLC in the fall semester and you will stay there for the entire academic year. If space is available through the room change process in the LLC later in the semester, if that's something you're interested in, certainly I would work with my colleague Jenna on that. But I would also name, if you're interested in an LLC and perhaps you don't select into that opportunity during your first year, we do have living learning communities available for upper class students as well. And there's not a requirement to having been in an LLC during your first year to join in your second year. So clearly, while I, in my very biased opinion, would highly encourage it, in your first year at Pitt, it's not something that precludes you from joining it later in your Pitt experience if that's something that you're interested in.
And Amanda, do you want to speak on like even the communities that are not full building, like they still can take they can still partake in programming outside of the community as well. Like
absolutely, yes. So through your LLC experience, you have the really unique opportunity to not only engage in programs that are tied specifically to your living learning community, think opportunities to do site visits. I always talk about like our business in a pre-COVID world, our business LLC used to go to Google and Duolingo for site visits through the LLC. Our engineering LLC goes to Fallingwater, the Frank Lloyd Wright destination that's not too far. Our health sciences LLCs would get chief surgeon, health sciences is not my wheelhouse, but like the chief of transplant surgery would come and talk to our health science LLC. Those are unique opportunities for the living learning community, but they're not your only residential programming opportunities. So you're still going to get to go to programs that are hosted for the entire building or the full community outside of that LLC experience as well. So you're still getting the traditional residence life experience. But you're also then, if you're opting into an LLC on top of that, you're getting opportunities to really dive into the content of your living learning community.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm reading through these questions. So Cami, I want to answer your question about the portal URL for what I was showing in the demo. I'm not able to actually drop that link into the chat because it's a dual authentication process that the student has to log into. They should have received instructions on how to get to that portal to complete their application. So you go to my.pitt, my.pitt.edu, you log in that way, and you want to search for 2022-2023 housing information and click on that link, and it will direct you through Pitt Pay. And then you click make deposit, click continue, and then it takes you into that portal. So it's a pretty lengthy process. If we have time at the end, I can walk through like what it looks like for me to go through that process, but I'm not able to actually drop a link URL because you do have to sign in to 2 different things to get through it.
Jen, I'm seeing lots of questions about LLC locations. So
Yeah,
do
I
you
was gonna say, do you want to talk about location?
Absolutely. So LLC locations are not posted for a couple reasons. Number one, the only LLC buildings that we name are LLCs that are in full, that take up the entire building. So for example, our business LLC is located in Bruce Hall because that is the entirety of the building is the business LLC. Our engineering LLC is located in Forbes Hall because it takes up the entire building. Our honors LLC is in Sutherland West because that takes up the entire building. The rest of our LLCs, we do not share locations for a couple reasons, but the primary reason is that it allows us a bit more flexibility and doesn't make us make promises that we can't keep. So being able to look at applications, being able to see the gender breakdown of applicants means that if something has been perhaps on 2 floors in Tower B, but makes sense to move it over to Tower A, based on any number of factors, that allows us some flexibility and allows us to kind of optimize the number of folks who would be able to enroll in an LLC. I would also share very transparently that we want to make sure that folks are opting into the LLC experience, not based on the building, because again, if we have to move that, we certainly don't want folks to be disappointed. So if you really want to live, historically, our health science LLC has been in Tower A. And if you're really trying to get to Tower A, we don't want you to opt into the health sciences solely because it's in Tower A. And then find out we've moved it to Nordenberg, for example. So that is the other reason that we don't name LLC locations, save again, those 3 I mentioned that do take up the entire building.
Thank you. So I'm seeing some questions about when people will be notified about roommates, LLCs, locations. So I guess I didn't really go over what happens after June 1st. So June 1st, 11:59 p.m., housing, AKA myself, takes all of the application information from all of our incoming first-year students, sends all the LLC information to our designated LLC partners where they can go through all the applications. They send back who they're recommending for the LLC back to me. We work on LLC assignments, and then we work through all of our incoming first-year assignments through the entire month of June so that we can get the notice of assignments of where you're living and who you're living with, if applicable to you in July. So that is generally when you find out where you're living and who you're living with, if you'll have a roommate. And once you find out from Housing and Panther Central where you're living, that is when the LLC will send out their acceptance email to you saying, welcome to the LLC. So we want you to see where you're living first before you actually see if you are accepted into a community, because we don't want you to find out you were accepted into a community first without actually finding out your real assignment. So that's kind of the timeline of events. After June 1st, a different application actually goes up on the portal. It's the same application, but there is no room for roommate updates or LLC application information. So that is why we really try to push the June 1st deadline, because after that point, there's no wiggle room in accepting any other application updates at that point. So make sure you're sticking to that deadline. I am sending out reminder emails to students who have been invited into groups for their roommates every week, and a couple times a week to make sure that they are responsive. I'm also sending emails out to students who indicated interest in an LLC but have not completed an application, or for students who have completed an LLC application that might want to make updates to their application. They can do that all the way up until June 1st. So let's see here. I am seeing a question about what if you don't have a roommate request and you want to use the random roommate option, and what if you don't mesh well with that roommate? So I'm going to talk about it from the housing perspective, and then Amanda, if you want to talk about it from the res life perspective. So if you decide not to go into or you don't complete the housing application with an indicated roommate preference, you are actually my favorite kind of student, because that, like, I can then focus on like your top priority housing, like your building, maybe your LLC, things like that. And I can fit you into a space that you might be most interested in. So I have a lot of flexibility for students who don't have roommate preferences. But I also try to make sure that you end up with somebody who has the same kind of preferences as you do. So do they stay up late at night? Do they smoke? You know, what is their lifestyle like? And we do our best in matching, but we understand that no matter how hard we try, it might not end up being, you know, your number one choice as a roommate. But understand going into it, something that I had to tell myself going into my first year of college is, I'm living with this person, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be best friends with this person, because my roommate and I both respected each other's space and we got along really well, but we didn't have to hang out with each other all the time. So we had our separate lives and we always came back to, you know, watching movies together and things like that, but we understood boundaries. But we know that you might not be able to overcome some things. And then I will let Amanda talk about like what the steps would be to maybe get a room change.
Sure. So one of the things I would share first is when you first come to campus, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to not only get to know your roommate and the folks around you, but also have some dialogue about expectations and things you want to see happening in the room, and how you envision yourselves living together and sharing a space. So we'll do things like have opportunities for you to get to know your roommate a little bit better, some facilitated conversations, and then we'll do a roommate agreement. And as Jenna named, some of the best roommate pairs or groups work best when they set clear boundaries and expectations for one another, and don't go in with an expectation of anything but being respectful of those boundaries and expectations, and they live together very well. Now, if that doesn't work or there's some conflict there, we'll do a couple things. Number one, we have staff in every building, both resident assistants who are upper class students who have been trained to help folks mediate and engage in dialogue and have some conversations. And then two, there is a resident director of the building, and that is our professional staff member, a master's degree professional who supervises those RAs, but also is very well trained in engaging in those conversations as well. So the very first thing we'll do is we'll get you to talk to your roommate and see if there are ways that maybe we're just not communicating well. And it's a simple conversation about respecting or redrawing some expectations and boundaries. After that mediation process, we will then work with you if the answer is, you know what, we really still can't be living together. We'll then work with our partners in housing to see what's available and how roommate room changes could be made. But truly transparently, most of the time, the conversation brings to light the issues that were causing the problems and allows folks to work through them and want to stay together as roommates.
I'm on mute. I love when the thing comes up on the screen, like you're on mute. And I'm like, okay. I'm seeing some questions about building amenities and like, what would we choose as like our personal preference? I will say what I usually tell my incoming first year students is to make a list of like what their priorities are as far as like living spaces. So like, is their priority to be on lower campus or upper campus, or does location not matter to them? Is their priority to have their indicated roommate? And if so, are they interested in only having a double to themselves, or are they open to having more roommates within that space? Because there are suite options that we can fit 4, 6, 8 students in. And then also to take into consideration like air conditioning versus no air conditioning, cost. So I see the question like, what would I choose between Nordenberg and Sutherland? My personal preference, I'd rather be in Holland because I want to be in the center of campus. I love the old style building. Air conditioning is not an issue to me. I actually love radiant heat. So like you'll find me in Holland all day, every day. But there's like Nordenberg and Sutherland are two completely different buildings. Like Nordenberg has doubles and triples, communal bathrooms. It's our newest building on campus. It's on lower campus. It's also one of our more expensive buildings on campus. Sutherland is on upper campus. There are a handful of doubles in the building, but for the most part, you're going to be in a 4, 6, or 8-person suite. You do have semi-private bathrooms, and you do have the ability to go to the Perch, which is on upper campus, which is a smaller version of what the eatery is, which are all you care to eat facilities on campus. So it's all on what you're looking for. So I would take a look at our website to maybe get the pros and cons of each building and then lay it out. We really try to put you in one of your top 3 or 5 choices. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed because it's literally a puzzle assigning all 4,500 incoming first-year students, and we can't fit everybody in Northernburg and Sutherland. So make sure you are giving us a variety of spaces for you. Amanda, if you had to pick a favorite building, where would you pick?
I work in residence life. They're all my favorite. But I will, so here's the story I would tell. Very transparently, I, like Jenna, would want to be around more people. So like I would want the quad towers. Actually, I'm going to say that 18-year-old Amanda would have wanted that. Not 18-year-old Amanda would probably make some different decisions. But what I will say is this. The number of students who say, I would never live in towers, and the number of students who say, I only want to live in towers is probably a 50-50 split, which I think is the most telling thing that is really about what's important to you and what's important to how you're prioritizing things. So as Jenna named, air conditioning or a walk, I love upper campus. I love that walk. So I also would say, for as much as I would want to be in, the lower campus space, I love the separateness and the walk, but the community that's on upper campus. So I did not answer Jenna's question at all, because I really do actually think that they're all my favorite. But I really think, to drive home the point, that it's really about what's important to you and your Pitt experience, rather than maybe what you're hearing others talk about, because they're prioritizing different things.
Thank you. I see, Ben, your question about like, when will we find out what to bring, what not to bring, how do we rent things like that. We usually start sending out all of that stuff after notice of assignments go out, because once you find out where you're living and who you're living with, that is when you can start really planning who's bringing what do you actually need to bring, because some of our buildings come with more amenities than others. So we don't want you to go out and buy a TV and refrigerator right now, although I'm sure you can return it, and to rather wait maybe until closer to July when you find out where you're living. We give you plenty of time before arrival to actually plan your arrival, connect with your roommate, things like that, to actually designate those kinds of things. But that is when we send like the when or what to bring and what not to bring checklist, the micro fridge rental information, and then you'll also get emails. I believe I'm actually not sure what the company is anymore, but like how to buy bedding and stuff from Pitt. It's a third party and it can be delivered right to your room. So all of that, all that information comes a little bit later in the summer. Is there anything that first year students don't usually know that they should know? That's a really good question.
I love this question.
If you want to answer it first, you can go ahead. I'm trying to think.
So here's what I will say. I think one of the things that I would name most transparently that I see as students prepare to come to Pitt and engage in Welcome Week and other new student programs is that everybody's in the same boat, even if they don't look like they are. Everybody's nervous, everybody's excited, everybody doesn't know where they're going, everybody doesn't know how to ride the bus. Everybody's in the same place. Now, whether or not they're sharing that with you or you're watching it and not perceiving it, I promise you that everyone is having that new experience when they come to Pitt. Everyone's a little nervous and everyone's a little excited. So just lean into that as you work to meet new people, as you work to feel comfortable in Oakland, as you work to feel and find your place at Pitt. I think it's really important to know that everyone's feeling the same way.
Thanks. I might actually have to think about that question a little bit. But going along with what Amanda said, I think like if you're having, I wouldn't say trouble, but if you have questions about like resources available, to definitely utilize the staff that work at the university, whether that is your resident director, your resident assistant, because we are all trained to point you in the right direction. So if you are a student who might have an accommodation, where whether that's for educational purposes or housing accommodation, we can direct you to the Office of Disability Resources to make sure that you're getting the needs that you need. If you currently, you know, maybe are going to therapy and you want to connect with the University Counseling Center, we can direct you to those people. If you have questions on how to get to downtown, Panther Central is open 24/7. You can always stop by and figure out what buses go to downtown Pittsburgh. There is just literally a human for any question that you might have. And I really think that some people just tend to hold in their questions because they're afraid to ask, but don't be afraid to ask, because that's what we get paid to do, is to be here for you. So, and like I said, we'll have more Zooms later on in the summer and to utilize Panther Central and even Residence Life for any questions that you have regarding the experience on campus or like logistically what it is to live on campus. Somebody asked about Ship to Pitt. Decisions on Ship to Pitt have not been made yet, but you will find out closer to when assignments go out if we are utilizing Ship to Pitt. I know that it was a great success in the past 2 years, and I do think that we would end up using it again, but I think logistically we're still trying to figure out if we are doing Ship to Pitt this year. Let's see. If you have found a roommate and created a roommate group, if you found them on RoomSync and you connected on RoomSync together, you don't have to do anything other than connect on RoomSync. But if you did not connect on RoomSync and you ended up going through your application or update preferences portal and somebody sent an invitation and someone accepted it, that's all that you need to do. Your roommate group is finalized. So I would just check in with your roommate to see that they accepted everything. And then if so, then you should be good to go. Oh, someone asked what Ship to Pitt is. Okay, so Ship to Pitt is a service that we started during COVID, where we allowed students to, I don't remember if it was FedEx or UPS, but we allowed them 5 shipping labels and they had to use boxes at least 20 by 20 by 20 or smaller. And they could use those labels and ship 5 boxes to the University of Pittsburgh, and we delivered them to your actual assignment for you. So that was alleviating some of the things you had to bring on move-in day to kind of speed up and make the process a little bit smoother for you. So that was only used for move in. We don't use anything like that for move out. You still have to like take everything home. But that was what we used for Ship to Pitt for. Doesn't matter when you arrive on campus as a first year student, that first week closer to the 20th of August or later. So we have not, well, actually, arrival dates might be posted out there when arrival starts. I believe it starts August 20th. That is subject to change depending on how the summer rolls out and going into the fall term. But we do generally designate a date and a block of time that you should be arriving to campus. And we do that because we don't want all 700 Tower B students to arrive on the same day. We want to make it as easy as possible. So we do say that it's encouraged for you to show up on the date and block of time that we give you, but we understand that it's just not, we just can't accept that everybody does that or can do that because of jobs and travel and things like that. So if you are requiring a date that's different than what you are coming or you were scheduled for, to let us know when you would be coming, but you can't come any sooner than when arrival starts. So keep that in mind. Once arrival starts, you can come. It's pretty flexible, but we definitely encourage you to come when you're supposed to be coming. I would keep up with the arrival.pitt.edu website. That's when you can find out the actual arrival dates, and you can plan on coming on one of those 3 days for our incoming first year students. And then your designated date for yourself comes out with you or comes out with your assignment in July. So we give you 4 to 5 weeks in advance to plan for those dates. Are there co-ed rooms? Amanda, do you want to answer this question?
Sure. So we, and Jen, I might need your help with the language that was in the housing application, but we do have I'm going to name a specific opportunity that I am very much proud of and love. And then we can talk a little bit about outside of that. But one of the spaces where we have gender inclusive housing is in our gender and sexuality living learning community. That is a floor in a building that has gender inclusive rooms and bathrooms. So gender is not part of the assignment in that LLC, but that also means that you're engaging in some really cool programming. And that is one of our LLCs where you are also taking a course through the gender, sexuality, and women's studies, looking at a history of the LGBTQIA plus population and history in the United States. Is really awesome. Again, in my very biased opinion, but it is a really cool class and a really cool opportunity. So that is one space where there is gender inclusive housing on campus, but it is not solely found in the Gender and Sexuality LLC. And there was some information about gender and gender inclusivity in your own application about whether or not you would be interested in living in a gender inclusive space on campus as well. So I'll let Jenna, because I'm butchering the language in that application piece, I'll let Jenna speak about that.
No, thank you for that. Pay attention to the questions that we do ask in the roommate preferences portal or roommate preferences portion of your application, because like Amanda said, we do ask if you are open to living in a gender inclusive space. But if you have an actual gender inclusive need where you might have an accommodation that you need or a preference, like you have a roommate preference of the opposite gender or someone who identifies as the opposite gender, we definitely recommend that you put a ticket in with Panther Central. It has nothing to do with service requests. To put a ticket in with Panther Central, and we will reach out to you personally to see what kind of accommodation makes the most sense for you or you and your preferred roommate. Just because when we think of gender inclusivity, it's a spectrum on what people's accommodation needs might be or what they interpret it as. We have students who consider a gender inclusive building to be Tower A, which is definitely gender inclusive because we have floors that are male identified and we have floors that are female identified. But we have spaces like Bruce and Sutherland who are suite style, and we tend to keep all the same gender in one suite, but your neighbors could be of the opposite gender. So it's definitely another type of gender inclusive space. So we want to figure out what's the best for you, but we would never place you in a space of someone of the opposite gender unless it is indicated on your application that you are open to that, and if they are also looking for a roommate in the same realm. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. It's a little bit deeper than just like, are there co-ed spaces on campus, because all of our buildings are technically gender inclusive. It's just a matter of how you want to interpret it and what you're looking for. Amanda, do you want to answer the medical emergency question?
Sure, absolutely. So if there's a true emergency, we certainly encourage our students to either call 911 or the Pitt Police, 412-624-2121, and to have those numbers saved in your phones because they work directly with the city and with the university or city EMS, fire, and then with the university and city police as well. But I would also name that great people to have in case of an emergency after you have summoned the folks in that way are the resident assistants and the resident directors. They're trained in crisis management, meaning that they are there to assist, but they are there to assist the first responders. So to make sure that we've got space, that we've cleared folks away, and those things. So an RA or an RD is never your first call in a true emergency. But certainly they are trained to help in times of crisis and get folks connected to resources during and after the fact as well.
Thank you. And then I think I'm gonna answer one last question, and it's about, is there a limit on how many people can help a student move in? So in the past 2 years, there have been a limit to the amount of people we allow up into the residence hall for move-in due to the recommendation of the COVID Medical Response Office on campus. That is to keep ourselves and our community safe as possible. We are not sure what those limitations will be for arrival this year, but to make sure that your student is checking their email to stay up to date on what that might be. I do know that when the decision comes out, it will come out after notice of assignment. So as we're sending out arrival information in July, that is when we will start also indicating, like, here's your move-in date and time. Here are what you should be bringing, what not to be bringing, and here's how many people you can let into the building with you. I am hoping for an as normal move-in as possible. That makes it enjoyable for everyone. Believe me, it's just as hard on our side saying to someone that they're not able to go into a building, but we do know that it is for the greater good and for the safety of everyone. So please be respectful of the decision. And if you have any questions, you can also go to coronavirus.pitt.edu. That's where the university's updates are always as they come out. So yeah, I think that is a good ending point. So I will say one more time, make sure you have all of your application preference information into the portal by June 1st, 11:59 p.m. Please stay in touch by checking your Pitt email address, because that is the only way that we will communicate with you. And that if you need any assistance or have any further questions, do not hesitate to reach out to Panther Central or one of us. We will try our best to make sure that we get the right answers for you, whether it's from us or one of our partners. But thank you again for being here, and we look forward to seeing you in August.